Yes. Good evening, Dr. Nilesh. Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes, sir.
Namaskar. Good evening. Behalf of Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine, I, Dr. C.N. Galdar, welcome you all for today's webinar. Today again, a distinguished speaker is with us. He is nothing but Dr. Milind Patil, sir. Before initiating our webinar, I do welcome him and request Dr. Ram Prabhu, sir, to give his introductory remark. Ram Prabhu, sir, please.
Good evening, Galdar. So at the outset, I welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Milind Patil, Ayurvedic physician and a well-known academician in the field of Ayurveda for today's webinar. His topic is on role and relevance of Ayurveda in veterinary medicine. It is a new topic for our veterinary medicine. So though we are practicing allopathy and homeopathy, and nowadays more importance is given to Ayurvedic form of medicine. So I welcome Dr. Milind Patil on behalf of ISVM as well as on behalf of the participants. I also welcome Dr. A.P. Singh, Vice President of ISVM, and other executive committee members, as well as all the participants of the program for today's webinar. I welcome one and all. Thank you. Galdar, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Before I do request Patil sir to start his webinar, I am briefing about the Patil sir. Dr. Milind Patil sir is an alumnus of Poddar Ayurvedic Medical College, Mumbai. After obtaining his MD in Ayurveda Sahita, Dr. Patil stayed on a member of the teaching faculty in the same institution for many long years before switching over to pharma medico marketing. Dr. Patil has served many allopathy and Ayurvedic corporates in his own elegant way, be it in Doptep, Pepshore, and Themis, and Cherry Pharma Private Limited. His creative continuous have stood head and shoulder above the rest in substance as well as style. He has made scholarly and although provoking presentation on reputed platform dealing with the burning healthcare issue of the day. On the clinical trial front, his experience and expertise cover the entire of therapeutic specialist, wherein he has scientifically studied herbal activities as well as finished formulations and published the data in highly reputed peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Patil's passion for teaching is continuous, and despite the long year he has put in, he is ever ready to teach and in having interest with the student as well as professional in spontaneous and friendly manner. I do request Dr. Patil sir and inviting him to deliver the webinar. Patil sir, please. Thank you.
Sir, please unmute your mic.
Self.
Dinesh, please ask him to unmute.
Sir, I unmuted.
Hello.
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, Indian Society for Veterinary Medicine. This is my passionate subject. I keep talking about role and relevance of Ayurveda in today's healthcare, but it's quite a novel thing for me to talk on role and relevance of Ayurveda in veterinary practice. But then I have a very little experience of veterinary practice. We had a pet, a dog, Gypsy, a Labrador. Whenever I feel that he is sick or he may fall sick, I used to call my veterinary doctor for the consultation. And he used to tell me that, doctor, I'm not free, I won't be able to come. But what medicines do you have at home? And then I used to tell him that I have some Ayurvedic digestives and antidiarrheals and immunomodulators. Then he would ask me to prescribe those medicines to my dog, the gypsy, and he used to get well with those Ayurvedic preparations. This is my experience. And whenever my employer asked me for medicines for horses, I used to recommend certain Ayurvedic products for the horses. And I distinctly remember that we have treated a horse of oligospermia with Ayurvedic spermatogenetic medicines and with a good results. So this is what my experience is. And I was never surprised at the results, because what works in human beings will work for animals. And that was the philosophy. Only the dosage changed. The vet will ask me, "Sir, what is the dose, human dose?" And then accordingly, he will translate the dose into veterinary practices principles, and they used to prescribe and they used to administer the medicines, and we used to get the results. This is what my experience in veterinary practice is. But then, as far as expertise in Ayurveda go, I think I have quite a lot experience. And if you start to understand the basic principles of Ayurveda, then you will start to understand the role of Ayurveda in veterinary practice. So I will speak on my few slides, initial slides. Majority of my slides will talk about what Ayurveda is. And if you understand what Ayurveda is, I think you will be able to practice Ayurvedic medicine in your veterinary setup. Just see this slide, old person. That was in 1977 when I took admission to first year BMS. Attitude does matter. Then it was a surprise for many of my friends and colleagues. Ayurveda mein gaya. Okay, so that time we used to look at Ayurveda as a Jadi Buti ka shastra. But Jadi Buti, abhi tum sikhoge. Now you will learn Jadi Buti. So Ayurveda was never considered as a science. Then in 1976, Ayurveda is an old science. That was what was known to the common folks. But just with attitude change, many of the allopathic doctors
Patil
and
sir,
science.
Patil sir, just a minute. There is some friction sound from your speaker. Some it means all sound is coming. If you
Now-
can speak directly without headphone also, it will be okay. Is it possible?
No, I'm speaking with headphone. I think that paper was under the fan and that was making sound.
Okay,
I
okay.
removed that paper. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So the scientists like Gandhar Sen, Pandit Shiv Sharma, Dr. Udupa, Rustam Jal Vakil, Dr. Deepak Chopra in America, Dr. Sharadini Rahanukar, Ashok Vaidya, few names may be familiar to you. Dr. Mashelkar, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam promoted Ayurveda, and because of their promotion of Ayurveda, say for example, Deepak Chopra made American audience familiar with Ayurveda. Dr. Sharadini Rahanukar, Ashok Vaidya, they were at the forefront of promoting the Ayurveda. Dr. Mashelkar himself and our president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, did their best to promote Ayurveda, and the things have changed. With change in attitude, very same old person, now in 2020, see, you people are calling me for the lecture, role and relevance of Ayurveda in veterinary practice. Just appreciate this change in attitude has made us look at Ayurveda as the future medicine. Even this Corona period, every person is asking for some or other Ayurvedic medicine to improve the immunity. And therefore, this is as young as this phase now in 2022. And we all must appreciate this, and we must all be ready to put Ayurvedic practices in our day-to-day. Magic to scientific medicine. Now, only yesterday or day before yesterday, IMA raised certain questions about role and relevance of Ayurveda in COVID. Just see these two words, magic to scientific medicine. Yes, initially so-called Ayurveda was Daiva Vyapashray. We called it as Daiva Vyapashray. The word Daiva Vyapashray means magic. But then acharyas like Charak, Shushruta, Vagbhat, these are the rishis of Ayurveda. Charak is considered as father of Indian medicine. These rishis like Charak, Shushruta and Vagbhat and others, so many rishis, made that Daiva Vyapashray, converted that Daiva Vyapashray medicine into scientific medicine. And what was the Sanskrit word for scientific medicine? Yukti Vyapashray Aushad. Just try to appreciate that word. Yukti Vyapashray medicine. And Yukti is nothing but the experiment that you do today in your scientific labs. Okay, so Yukti Vyapashray medicine became scientific medicine. Charak, Shushruta, Vagbhat wrote books on Ayurveda for human beings. You'll be surprised to know that Shushruta also wrote books on veterinary medicine. I will come to that point later in my presentation. So Ayurveda is not magic. Ayurveda is not superstitious. Ayurveda is not jadibuti. Ayurveda is not Bondugiri. Okay, so Ayurveda is scientific medicine because the word Yukti Vyapashray medicine means a medicine based on experiments. The basic principle of Ayurveda is that body is similar to nature. We call body as microcosm. We are part of the macrocosm. This is the basic principle. In Sanskrit, we call it as Loka Purusha Samya. Lok is Sansar, the world, the universe, and Purush is the human body. So, the basic principles of Ayurveda are based on this fundamental that whatever is available in the universe is also present in the human body, that is Purush. Therefore, Purush is similar to Lok. Lok is nature. So, based on these fundamental Ayurvedic principles, and what do we consider body as? Body is structure and function. We do consider body as composite of body, mind, and spirit. And this is the holistic approach of Ayurveda. Okay, and we are composed of these 5 major elements like Prithvi, Jala, Tej, Vayu, and Akash. This is quite commonsensical. We all know Panchamahabhut theory. We all know this Panchamahabhut as Prithvi, Jala. Human body is composed of Prithvi and Jala predominantly, and Tej, Vayu, and Akash. This is the theory of Ayurveda. 5 elements of the universe are present in the body. They are responsible for the structure and function. Prithvi and Jala predominantly for the structure. Tej, Vayu, and Akash predominantly for the function. With this, we proceed in our presentation. You will be surprised to know that 3,000 years ago, Ayurveda was classified into 8 different branches. Let us appreciate these 8 different branches, 8-fold classification of Ayurveda. You must have heard the term Ashtanga Ayurveda. That is Ayurveda having 8 different branches like Kaya Chikitsa, general medicine, Kaumara Bhrutya, gynecology, obstetrics, pediatrics, Shalya Tantra, surgery, Shalakya Tantra, ear, nose, throat, and ophthalmology, Bhuta Vidya, spiritual therapy, Visha Tantra, toxicology, Rasayan, rejuvenation therapy, Vajikaran, virilization therapy, or aphrodisiac. Friends, just appreciate that even today in modern medicines, these last 2 branches are not yet developed. They may have general medicine, gynec, obstetrics and pediatrics, surgery, ENT, ophthalmology, spiritual therapy, toxicology, but then yet in 2020, they lack in therapies like rejuvenation therapy and virilization. So it is quite unimaginable that 3,000 years ago, we did have in Ayurveda 8-fold classification of various therapies like Kaya, Tomar, Shalya, Shalakya, Bhuta Vidya, Vishatantra, Rasayan, and Vajik. So Ayurveda considers body to be a composite of dosha, dhatu, and mala. So if you want to understand the human body, you need to understand body in terms of dosha, dhatu, and mala. These are technical terms, but I will explain them. Doshas are functional elements. There are 3 in number: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. We call all 3 as 3 doshas. Dhatus are 7 in number. They are the structural elements: Rasa, Rakta, Mans, Med, Asti, Majja, and Shukra. So, and malas are feces, urine, sweat, etc. So, what is body? Body is composite of dosha, that is functional elements, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, structural elements, Rasa, Rakta, Mans, Med, Asti, Majja, Shukra, and excretory products or waste material of the body like feces, urine, sweat, etc. And based on this understanding of body structure and function, we treat the disease conditions. Just appreciate this. Food and digestion. So we have in nature 5 great elements, Panchamahabhut, like earth, water, fire, air, and space. So whatever we consume, food items, they are made up of earth, Prithvi, Jala, Tej, Vayu, and Akash. So Prithvi and Jala will make the building material of the body. Mostly the structural elements like Rasa, Rakta, Mans, Med, Asti, Majja, Shukra. And fire is responsible for the transformation of food into body tissues. Air is responsible for the transportation, movement from body tissues from one part to another part of the body. And space offers those channels. Such a commonsensical approach towards understanding human body. So this is my thali, consisting of that roti, that rice, that chapati, that sabji, those pickles, etc., which are made up of water and earth, Prithvi and Jala, Tej, Vayu, and Akash. Then they are all processed within the body in digestive system, at tissue level, at the cellular level. The whole food is then divided into essence. Essence goes into the formation of body tissues, and the waste material, excretory products, are thrown out of the body. And this is how, day in, day out, from birth to death, we convert Panchamahabhut after due processing into functional and structural element. And therefore we call body as dosha, dhatu, mana. So doshas are made up of Panchamahabhut, dhatus are made up of Panchamahabhut with predominance. Earth and water will go into structural elements, and then fire, air, functional elements. I think this is all. And this applies to not only human body, but to animals as well. They do consume food, which is of Panchabhotik nature. They do process food into their digestive tract, and they have the essence and they have the excretory products. Essence goes into the formation of structural elements and functional element, and the waste material is thrown out of the body. Okay, all Ayurvedic medicines work at this level processing. Okay, they improve the quality of the processing. If the quality of processing is improved, then you have a good essential structural elements, and then you can really isolate, separate excretory product from the essence, and separated excretory products or waste material is thrown out of the body. So whatever Ayurvedic principle that apply to the treatment of diabetes, obesity, diarrhea, dysentery, cough, cold, fever, pneumonia, COVID, I make sure that this processing is important. And if I correct this processing at the digestive tract level, at the tissue level, at the cellular level, I make sure that my body tissues are strong and they are potent. And so we believe in the importance of terrain. We don't believe in the importance of germ, viruses, bacteria, and fungi. So terrain strengthened will make the body less vulnerable to any disease condition. That is the principle. And so Tridosha's concepts are based on, yes, nature. We have wind. In nature, we have sun. In nature, we have moon. Vata, dosha, functional element of the body, is analogous to wind. And in body, it is responsible for mobility. Sun is analogous. Pitta is similar to sun, which is responsible for the transformation. That chapati, that rice gets transformed into body tissues. So sun or pitta transformation. And kapha, that moon, offers consistency, stability to the body. And this is how we need to understand the basic principles of Ayurveda. Doshas are functional elements, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which are similar to natural elements, wind, sun, and moon. And accordingly, they offer functions like mobility, transformation, consistency, and stability. And these are the Saptadhatus. Rasa, you can consider rasa as a lymph or serum, plasma material. Rakta is blood, you can call it as hemoglobin. Mans, flesh and muscle. Meda, adipose tissue, fatty tissue. Asti, bones and cartilages. Majja, bone marrow. Shukra, sperms in males, and Oha in females. So these were functional elements. These are structural elements. And what is health? How does Ayurveda describe health? Health is nothing but equilibrium in the functional elements, structural elements, etc. So this equilibrium is very important. So when I call a person a healthy, I know for sure that Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Rasa, Rakta, Mans, Med, Asti, Majja, Shukra, and feces, sweat, urine, etc. are equilibrium, are in equilibrium. So what is the Samya condition in the human body? Samya is nothing but homeostasis. Homeostasis is health. And we manage by medicines, by following certain daily regimen and seasonal regimen. We make sure that all our body tissues and body elements are in equilibrium. They are in homeostasis, and that is called as health.
Patil sir.
Yes, sir.
There is some disturbance in the sound. Could it possible for you to directly speak without headphone? We'll check whether sound is coming in proper way or not.
Now is it okay? I have removed the headphone.
Yeah, sir. Just for 2 to 3 slide, we will see. If no
Okay.
disturbance, then we will continue with this, sir. Okay?
Okay, so I have removed my headphones. Is it okay
Yeah,
now?
yeah. It's okay now, sir.
Okay. So was that all waste which I talked?
Sir?
No, sir.
I,
No, sir. No, it is good, sir. Good.
I don't think.
Yes. Please
Okay.
continue, sir. Please continue.
So when this equilibrium is disturbed and you have Prithvi and Jala more, you suffer from heart diseases, obesity, diabetes, and etc. etc. So the predominance of Prithvi and Jal in the body, the excess of Prithvi and Jal in the body results in various kinds of heart diseases, obesity, diabetes, maybe cancer, etc. etc. If the balance is at the opposite side, like excess of Tej, Vayu and Akash, then we land up with certain degenerative disorders, musculoskeletal disorders, tuberculosis, etc. etc. So when I prescribe a medicine to these disease, in these disease conditions, I make sure that I go back to this condition, homeostasis. Okay, homeostasis achieved is health achieved. Prakriti. Okay, depending on the predominance of Pitta, Kapha, or Vata, there are 3 different Prakrutis. Just look at the physique of the person. This person is a Vata Prakriti person. This person is a Kapha Prakriti person, obese with that central obesity, muscular, and this person is Pitta Prakriti person. I don't know whether in veterinary practice, do you have some concept like this? Yes, human beings are classified according to predominance of dosha in their body. If Vata is predominant in the body, the thin physique will be there. Kapha persons are large, obese, and Pitta persons are of moderate size. Okay, I am pretty sure that even in veterinary practice, you can classify animal physics and even mental aspects of the animals on Vata, Kapha, and Pitta predominance, and accordingly, medicines are prescribed. What are the principles of pharmacology? The sources of drugs are herbal, mineral, and animal in origin. Probably you are familiar with ashwagandha, Ayush therapy, recommended therapy for coronavirus. Ashwagandha, Bhumyamalki, Guduchi, Kadunem, Vasa, etc. etc. Then we have minerals like Kasis Bhasma and Loha Bhasma. We have animal products like ghee and milk. Ayurveda has a different dimensional perspective of therapeutic action of drugs. Action of drug depends on what is the taste of that herb, whether that herb is hot or cold, whether the post-digestive effect is different from the taste. We call certain qualities responsible for Vata increase, Pitta increase, Kapha increase, or Vata decrease, Kapha decrease, or Kapha decrease. These are called as guna or attributes of that herbs. And there are specific action like prabhav, the whole drug acts. So ashwagandha will act based on its taste, potency, post-digestive effect, quality or attributes, and certain specific actions. Thus, we talk about the holistic action of our medicines. With this, we do practice purification therapies as well. We call it as, and you people may be familiar with the term Panchakarma. So this is Panchakarma. We induce home eating in Kapha Vikar. We induce loose motions or diarrhea in Pitta Vikar, and we offer certain enemas to restore disturbed Vata to its equilibrium state. And then we have certain kind of Shirovirachan, nasal medications, which are used for ENT disease condition, and we also use Rakta Mokshan, bloodletting, for certain disease conditions of Pitta and Rakta vitiation. So these are the pacifying therapies using herbal, mineral, animal. We call it as Shamana Chikitsa. And we have purification therapies, which we call it as Panchakarma, and we call it as the Shodhana Chikitsa. Shodhan is 5 types: Vaman, induced vomiting; Virechan, inducing loose motions; Basti, enema kind of things; Shuru Virechan, administration of the medicines through nose; and Rakta Mokshan, bloodletting. When the doshas are excessively deranged, we go to Panchakarma therapies. When the disease conditions are mild and moderate, we prefer shaman therapies. Then this is the best part of the Ayurveda, Rasayana. Appreciate the word Rasayana. Rasa is nutrient, Ayan is a channel. Just imagine, we have food, it is properly digested, it is converted into first nutritious product, that is rasa, and it does not flow through the channels are blocked. So Rasayan therapy cleanses the channels of the rasa. Rasayan therapy nourishes all the body tissue elements, that is Saptadhatus, by keeping channel of the rasa clean. Okay, and this is anti-aging therapy. We can call it as, generally Rasayan therapy is translated in English as anti-aging therapy. So Chavanprash is the best Rasayan medicines. Chavan was a rishi. When he wanted to attain the youthful state, he was a old rishi, so he wanted to become youth, and therefore he consumed Chavanprash and he became youthful. Okay, and that is why Chavanprash is the best Rasayan, consisting of Amla, Imblica officinalis as the main ingredient. See, this is the path of rasa. This is the channel of rasa. And when it is blocked, atherosclerosis, the person will suffer from heart disease, and Rasayan therapy will make sure that this debris does not accumulate within the blood vessel. Rasayan therapy will keep this channel open by removing this atheroma here. Okay, once this atheroma is removed, when this debris or accumulation of lipids or cholesterol is removed, the channel becomes clean and the cell tissue will get its nourishment, and you will see the relief in the heart condition. So various channels in the body and their blockages are responsible for various diseases like diabetes, obesity, cancer, and many others. Okay, and there Rasayan therapy will help. There are lifestyle disorders. I don't know whether in veterinary practice you get lifestyle disorders, but I am told that the diseases that we suffer from, animals also do suffer from the same disease. Pets suffer from lifestyle disorders. This is obesity, diabetes, stress, impotence, cancer, and aging. Okay, these are all lifestyle disorders. These are all the disorders of the modern era, and therefore Ayurveda is getting attention. Why future for Ayurveda, natural medicine, biomedicine is bright? Because corona and all other infectious diseases like tuberculosis, drug resistance, antibiotic resistance has made us understand the importance of Ayurveda, and today all eyes are on Ayurveda, Yes, I think this is 10-year-old slide, but in 2020, when I show this slide, really in Corona and in today's world, all eyes are on Ayurveda. Just see this book cover. This book is published in 2013. The name of the book is Lifestyle Medicine. Just appreciate, my friends, the meaning of lifestyle medicine is nothing but Ayurveda. I use life, Ved is science, knowledge, and therefore, when I saw this cover of the book published in 2013, I was happy that this is nothing but a book on Ayurveda. And I opened that book, and maybe in some other chapter, I found this sentence. There is no doubt that daily habits and actions exert profound health impact. And you'll be surprised to know, in our first year BMS or second year BMS, we read this line. There is no doubt that Dinacharya and Dinacharya exert profound health impact. Right from getting up early in the morning is the action, a daily habit. This is what we learn in our first year. Okay, what is the daily habit? Daily habit of having small quantities of food, mitahar, calorie restriction, fasting. What are those daily habits? Regular exercise, parishram, physical exercise. So when I read this sentence in 2013 published book titled Lifestyle Medicine, there is no doubt that Dinacharya exert a profound health impact. I felt sure that this is going towards Ayurveda. So modern medicine is approaching towards Ayurveda. Friends, if you appreciate the Nobel Prizes, that 4 or 5 years Nobel Prizes, they are all for Ayurvedic concepts and philosophies. I wish you observe this. Just look at that fly trying to get the food. Look at that movement of the leaves of the plant trying to trap the fly. So life is the struggle for survival. Life science is Ayurveda, and Ayurveda therapies, be it Shaman Chikitsa, Shodhan Chikitsa, Rasayan, etc., help your body, help your animal in the struggle for survival. Don't forget this picture forever. Okay, my Dinacharya described in my books, the Riticharya described in my books, various therapies described in my book make my life fit for this struggle for survival. And then if I am fit, I struggle hard and I am successful. I suffer from no diseases. This is Ayurveda and this is nature, and that is why there is a great future for Ayurveda. Yes, I talked about human medical science. Just look at this. I request you to go through these references published in 2006, Hasti Ayurveda, a complete treatise on elephant medicine. Ayurveda plays an important role in veterinary sciences. In India, history of traditional veterinary medicine dates back to the era of Mahabharata, that is 5000 BC, recorded in the form of Nakula Samhita. You know who Nakul is? Nakula Sahadev of Mahabharata of Pandya, were the sons of Kumar, of medicine, Ayurveda. Nakul was expert in elephant medicine. which was called as Hasti Ayurved. Is a treatise on elephants written by Nakul. Palakapya wrote this Samhita. The present book is available as a complete Samhita edited by Pandit Shivadutta Sharma. Hasti Ayurved was printed at Anandashram Press in 1894. Just try to appreciate the date of publication. In 1894, Hasti Ayurved was published. This book has 160 chapters. This Samhita is based on fundamental principles of Ayurveda, which we described in our presentation, containing all aspects of Sharir, including Rasa, Rakta, Mans, Med, Majja, Shukra, anatomy, including physiology, that is Vata, Pitta, Kapha, functional elements, Roga Vigyan, surgery and treatment of elephant, as well as their care. It is the one and the only complete printed Samhita and the rare book on Hasta Ayurveda by Palakapya. So Palakapya did write this book. Nakul in Mahabharat army was expert in horse, elephantine sciences. Okay, so this is the most ancient reference. The oldest existing veterinary text from India is treatise entitled Ashwayurved Siddhanta, attributed to Shalihotra, the founder of veterinary medicine. Nakula, one of the 5 Pandavas, was a horse specialist himself. Among the best known works of animal literature is Ashwachikitsa, written by Nakula. In fact, Nakula and Sahadev were experts in animal treatment. Shushruta, the father of surgery, a disciple of Shalihotra, wrote on animal surgery too. This made people aware of surgical methods, dressing of wounds, bandaging of fractures, etc. etc. Later, during the region of Chandragupta Maurya, veterinarians started accompanying armies to treat horses, elephants, as well as cattle. And what books did they refer to? They refer to books like Ashwachikitsa, Ashwayurved, etc. etc. This is Maharshi Palakapya's Gaja Shastram with the Sanskrit commentary, Bhavadarshani of Anantana Bhattaraka, edited by Wakankar, and Dr. Vaidya, Professor V.V. Maiskar, was a very senior Ayurvedic practitioner. Applications of Pippali, Ashwagandha, etc., etc. Look at this title, Herbal Bioenhancers in Veterinary Phytomedicine. So the phytomedicines that I've described, like Ashwagandha, Pippali, Shunthi, Haldi, etc., etc., they can be used as herbal bioenhancers in veterinary medicine. I will read out the abstracts. These compounds, valuable compounds, reduce the dose of the medicine. They will increase the treatment rate, therapeutic efficacy. They will decrease the treatment duration, and they will also result in reducing the drug resistance and related adverse reactions. So when I read this article, Herbal Bioenhancers in Veterinary Phytomedicine, I realize that Shaman Aushads like Shunthi, Marij, Pippali, aloe vera, etc., etc., I will come to those herb names. They are valuable compounds in veterinary phytomedicines and in helping reduce the dose, in helping increase the treatment rate or therapeutic efficacy, in helping decreasing the treatment duration, and in reducing the drug resistance and related adverse reactions. This review brings insight to mechanism involved in bioenhancing effect, examples of herbal extracts and phytoactive compounds, and their potential in the veterinary medicine, including different classes of drugs such as antibiotics. Yes, we do prescribe antibiotics in veterinary medicine, anti-cancerous medicine, antiviral, and anti-tuberculosis medicine. So we can always combine certain herbs like long pepper, Piper longum, black pepper, Piper nigrum, sunt, marij, pippali, haldi, curcuma longa, shunthi, ginger, yes, black cumin, garlic, yashti madhu, Kumari or aloe, and this OA, etc., as herbal bioenhancers in veterinary practice. You all, the audience in the audience, are expert in veterinary medicine. Just give a thought to this concept of herbal bioenhancers in veterinary medicine, and I think we'll be able to incorporate the most reputed Ayurvedic so-called home remedies into veterinary practice. So this is the brief history of the medicine. 2000 BC, here is this root. 1000 BC, that root is heathen, say this prayer. 1850 AD, that prayer is superstition, drink this potion. 40, that potion is snake oil, swallow this pill. 85, that pill is ineffective, take this antibiotic. That antibiotic is ineffective, artificial, here in this root. Okay, this is what is happening for Ayurveda. Okay, we are going back to Ayurveda, not at the national level, but at the international level. And so I think relevance and role of Ayurveda is also applicable or very much there in veterinary practice too. This we must realize. Thank you, friends, for giving me this opportunity. I wish that you send all your questions on chat. Dr. Galdha will send those questions to me because I am not an expert in veterinary. I will certainly apply my mind to your questions and I will try to respond to queries sooner or later. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Galdha. Thank you all for patience.
Thank you, sir. Sir,
Hi,
hello.
yes.
Sir, 3 to 4 questions are there. They are dependent on the Ayurveda principle. Can I take it quickly?
Hello. Three
sir.
to four?
3 to 4 questions are there. They are totally asked on the basis of the principles of Ayurveda. Can I take that questions quickly?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, Dr. VK Jain, he is the head of the department. He is willing to ask, many rasayanas are there. They contain heavy metals. Okay.
Okay.
Will there is any toxicity in short term as well as in long term?
Okay. So the query is regarding heavy metals.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dr. Galdha, we have been using heavy metals in Ayurveda for centuries.
Okay.
Maybe 1200 or 1300 years. The toxicity of the Ayurvedic heavy metallic medicines does not occur. Okay, if they are properly processed, properly manufactured, and that is very obvious. If the medicine is properly prepared and it is used for right indication, in the right dosage for right duration, then it is not toxic at all. I'll tell you an anecdote which actually happened. I was attending some conference in Hafkin Institute or KEM Hospital, and Dr. Badwe was talking on statistics. Dr. Badwe, the oncologist, he was the director of Tata Memorial Hospital then. And after he spoke on statistics and role of statistics in research, etc., I met him. And then I asked him a simple query. And I told him, doctor, we are using heavy metals for centuries. Ayurvedic companies are medicine heavy metal containing medicines for centuries. Okay, and we have been dispensing tons and tons of heavy metal medicine. Population is eating it, and we are treating the disease conditions. We are getting the beneficial therapeutic effects. Do you still feel that with so much of quantity consumed by Indian population of heavy metals, that they are toxic? Then he asked me, he commented single sentence, Dr. Patil, whatever you're telling, if it is true, then heavy metals do not have side effects. Now, I pursued this subject further, and there is some term like hormesis. you must know this term, hormesis, Hormesis. The meaning of hormesis is poisons in little dosage are medicinal. And I think this is the principle that our Rasa Shastrajnas used, that in Alpa Matra, even the poison is good. So, if it is given in excessive dose, then it may cause any medicine, even for that matter, excessive rice eating, excessive chapati eating, excessive food item eating is not good for the health. So, heavy metals in small dosage are called medicines, and they are really amrut. Okay, my teacher used to say that Rasa Shastra or medicine of heavy metals in Ayurveda is the soul of Ayurveda. Atma hai Ayurveda ka Rasa Shastra. So we have been using these heavy metals for centuries, and we don't see the epidemics of mercury poisoning and lead poisoning and arsenic poisoning, and therefore we can safely say that heavy metals are not toxic. Heavy metal medicines are not toxic if they are properly manufactured, properly administered, in proper dosage for proper duration. Okay, I would request all of you to read something on hormesis, Hormesis. There was this scientist, Dr. Calabrese. He was approached by certain industry for solution of their problem. The industry was facing a problem. The workforce was not willing to work in a department where they had exposure to radiation. Just try to understand. This Dr. Calabrese was approached by a company, industry, for solution of their problem. What was their problem? Their workforce was not willing to work in the department where they were exposed to certain radiation. And then this job was given to Dr. Calabrese. Dr. Calabrese, please find a solution for this. And then Dr. Calabrese took this as a challenge. He did certain investigations, and what did he find? He found that the workers who were exposed to radiation, who worked in the radiation department, were more healthy than the workers who did not work in the radiation department. And then he coined the term hormesis. Dr. Calabrese was the person who coined the term hormesis. The meaning of hormesis is poisons in small dosage are medicinal. And then Dr. Hormesis was interacting or sharing this experience with his Indian colleague. This Indian colleague was from Punjab. And when Dr. Calabrese shared this experience with that Indian person, that Indian person said, "Arey, my grandfather is an Ayurvedic practitioner, and he makes use of this mercury, this lead, and all those medicines in his practice for treating the patient." And that was the realization. First time it occurred to Calabrese and that person that Ayurvedic medicines, especially medicines containing heavy metals, work hormetically. Okay, so this is what I can share at the moment with you. Heavy metal toxicity does not exist if properly used medicine, properly manufactured medicine is administered in proper dose and duration in a proper disease conditions.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one question again. It is really interesting and important from our veterinary point of view, sir. This question is from Dr. Amol. How to perform toxicity studies of any herb in lab animals? Sir, what is your opinion on this, sir?
How to conduct toxicity studies of herbs?
In laboratory animal, and how to, it means, decide the dose for toxicity and other thing. Any?
I don't think, Dr. Galdar, I am expert in this subject, so I'm not in a position to reply to this question.
Okay. Again, sir, it will be highly appreciated if you can give your opinion. For example, some drugs are there, herbs are there, and we want to use that drug as an anti activity. So how it means, what is the criteria of that particular drug to use as an anti-cancerous compound or anti-cancerous herb?
Okay, so you want names of the herbs which may have anti-cancer activity.
Yes, sir.
Is
But
it?
it means what are the ideal characteristics of that herb that I want to know? Will you highlight on that?
Okay, I don't know what characteristics, but I know for sure the names of few herbs which are used in cancer therapy. Okay, the first haldi, curcuma. Okay, the second is pippali, piper longum, and third, very specific medicine that we use in cancer therapy is bhallatak. I don't know the Latin name, Semicarpus anacardium. Okay, bhilawa we call it as in our ordinary Marathi, but then bhallatak, Semicarpus anacardium. These are few herbs which we do use in cancer therapy.
Sir, any means how can we treat or acute diseases like blood poisoning by Ayurveda?
I don't have any idea.
Okay, okay.
Blood poisoning.
Yeah. It means per acute diseases. Per acute diseases are there in a human being that we are going to treat by allopathy medicine. So, what should be
Okay.
the approach to treat by Ayurveda?
See, when you say blood poisoning or some acute disease conditions, yes, we do have those medicines. We have a chapter in our Charak Samhita which is called as Jwara Chikitsa. Jwara is pyrexia, fever. Now, this is an acute condition. You can prescribe medicines which are prescribed for, recommended for Jwara in acute conditions. Like Guduchi, like Shunthi, like Piper longum, etc., etc. There are certain decoctions that we recommend, like Manjishtadi Kwat, Mahamanjishtadi Kwat, for blood purification. This can also be considered as useful ingredients in veterinary practice. Immunity enhancers, we should always go for Tinospora cordifolia. Blood purification, Haldi and Manjishta, Rubia cordifolia, etc., etc. I can think of these medicines at the moment.
Sir, what would be the best product for irritable bowel syndrome, sir?
Okay, how does the animal present? What are the manifestations of irritable bowel syndrome?
Sir, generally loose motion is there, diarrhea and other thing only.
Okay,
Yeah.
and diarrhea and motions are frequent.
Yeah, motions are also frequent, sir.
Okay, I think I can recommend Hollerina antidysenterica, Kutaj, and a combination of Kutaj and Shunthi, ginger, for irritable bowel syndrome in animal practice.
Okay. Sir, you are human doctor.
Doses certainly will differ from the human, but then these are the bestest of the best herbs for treatment of IBS.
Okay, sir. Sir, last question from our side, sir. It's not really from veterinary side, but from human medicine, sir. We are now seeing the pandemic of the COVID and all. Being a Ayurveda Charya, sir, what suggestion or what advice will you give to our ISVM fraternity, sir, for its prevention? Or it means how to do the safe work and all, sir.
See,
Being the Ayurvedic person, sir. Your guidelines as per the Ayurvedic.
Okay, I will say some Ayurvedic Sanskrit line. Sankshepatāh kriyayogo nidana parivartanam. The therapy of any disease, in brief, is avoidance of causative factors. So whatever do's and don'ts we are following these days in Corona days, like use of sanitizers, like use of masks, like keeping that physical distancing, is the best thing that we need to follow. And the second thing, this Corona seems to have an affinity for respiratory system, and therefore we need to keep our respiratory system in health. I think whatever Ayush is recommending herbs like Shunthi, Guduchi, Ashwagandha, and then Dalchini, etc., etc., Haldi for that matter, they are all tonics of for the respiratory system, and therefore they should be used to keep your body strong. Louis Pasteur had said that, or Alexander Fleming, I don't remember. I think Louis Pasteur. The terrain is everything. The germ is nothing. So for the germ, we are following sanitizer, mask, and social distancing, etc., etc. And for the terrain, these recommended herbs for the Ayush should be taken. I think Chyawanprash would be the best respiratory tonic, and I think we should take care and we should follow the dictates of the science than the whims of the scientist.
Sir, again, small question is blank on my chat box, sir. Human being also, sir, you may come across with the diseases like prolapse of the vagina or uterine prolapse and other thing. Yes, sir.
Yes.
So in our veterinary practice, sir, prolapse is again one, it means a disease which is generally prevalent after parturition. So what treatment or herbal treatment, Ayurvedic treatment can
I
be
think
recommended?
we can. I will tell you what we do in human beings. Okay? So there is prolapse. We make sure we replace that prolapse portion, and astringent decoctions and astringent medicated oils are used. We have a gauze pieces, and we drench those gauze pieces in astringent oils and astringent decoctions, and we put it there. So that astringency of the decoction and the oil will firm the prolapsed, will keep that prolapse intact. It will restore the tissues in normal position.
Okay.
These are the questions which I can answer well after I refer to my literature.
No, sir, I am collecting almost 8 to 10 questions are there from different participants. I'm collecting the questions and send it to you on your email. After getting answer from you, I will communicate to all of them. I request all the participants, just submit your queries or questions to the webinar moderator. I will forward this question to sir. After getting the answer, I will communicate it to all of you. Thank you. Sir, at the last, I would like to invite Dr. Ravi Zado to propose the vote of thanks. Sir, we are really thankful to you for it means making your time to deliver this webinar on our ISPM forum, sir. I request Dr. Ravi Zado. Dr. Zado is there?
Sir, am I? Sir,
Yes,
am I
yes,
audible?
you're audible. Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, good evening, all the respected judges and participants. This is Dr. R.K. Jadhav, Assistant Professor, and today I am here to top thanks for today's webinar. On behalf of ISVM Society and Organizing Committee, Milind Patil sir, for delivering such a wonderful talk, putting light on importance of Ayurveda in veterinary medicine. So thank you for guidance, ISVM family. I'm also thankful to Dr. D.S. Noel sir, President ISVM, and Dr. Ramu sir, General Secretary ISVM, for their relentless support and motivation for organizing weekly webinars on varied subjects in order to enrich the knowledge of medicine fraternity as well as veterinarians across the nation. I'm also thankful of Dr. C.N. Galdar sir, Dr. Nilesh Sindhu sir, and Dr. Sujit Kumar, moderators of webinar, for their excellent execution of webinars every week. I am also thankful of Dr. S.K. Singh, putting his efforts for procedures of registration and e-certificate distribution to all the participants for every webinar. Last but not the least, I am thankful of all the esteemed audience who patiently heard the webinar in order to enrich their knowledge. From the end, Dr. Galdar sir, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. With this, I am again thankful to Milind Patil sir for sparing his time to deliver the webinar on our ISVM portal. Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, Dr.
Good night. Good night to everyone. And thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Next webinar is also scheduled, but next webinar is not on Saturday. It is on Sunday, on 18th of October 2020, and it's on canine medicine ECG interpretations. The flyer, information flyer and registration link will be communicated to all in short period. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Nilesh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.